Hey everyone, it's John Gonzalez here from MLive.com and Michigan's Best. How are you doing today on this pre-summer weekend, right? It's officially going to be summer this weekend and Father's Day weekend. It's a lot going on throughout the state of Michigan. Thanks for joining us today on the show. We are doing Beer of the Week. And Amy's not with us today, but she vows to be back soon, working on some other projects. And I've been busy working on projects too, but now it's time to reveal what our beer of the week is going to be. And thanks again for everyone listening. If you're asking questions in there, I'll try to get those as quickly as possible. I'm not sure exactly how many I'll be able to get to because it's kind of crazy. Joining us right now is my good friend, Dave Seacott. Dave is from Brew Detroit. Oh, wow, you got give people a sneak preview already.
Yes, sir.
How you doing, Dave?
Great. How are you, John?
I'm doing great and excited to have you on the show because there's not a lot. I should say I've not been into Brew Detroit in the Corktown neighborhood. I've heard of Brew Detroit and I have a lot of questions about it and asking a little bit about your history. So before we get to beer of the week and reveal it, although you kind of teased it there, let's tell people a little bit more background about Brew Detroit.
So we started the process about 2012. It wasn't until about 2013 we started getting things rolling, and then 2014 when beer was in tanks and we started brewing for people. In 2016, that's when we opened up our tap room and we started serving our own beer out of our nano system, which also doubled as kind of like our pilot system for contract brewing clients. So in the tap room, we started brewing the small batch beer, serving it off the 30 taps that we have in the tap room and trying to fill those and keep it as interesting as possible, which then led to us making the decision that we were going to start pushing our own brand, Brew Detroit brand beer, to the market. And it started off with draft. Cerveza Delary was definitely one of those. And then we started into the packaging of all of our beer. Again, Delary being one of those and being basically our main beer and our flagship beer. And that was 2018.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about that in a second. A lot of people are saying hello out there, including Amy Sherman. She says,
hey, Amy.
Say hello to you, Dave.
Hi, Amy. How are you?
She's doing great. She says hola. So there you go.
Oh, perfect. Hola.
Yeah, hola back to you, Amy. All right, so before we get to beer of the week, explain to people what a contract brewer is, because a lot of people may not know what that means.
In a nutshell, it's a brewery either doesn't have the capacity or they may be a brand that doesn't have a brewery, which we don't really handle that much anymore. Mainly it's already established breweries that we work with that's called an alternating proprietorship, which is basically an extension of a brewery's brew house. So we're basically operating under their license. And that is a majority of the contract brewing contracts that we do right now.
And I took a look at some of your specs. You sent them over to me. I mean, you guys have a huge operation. How many barrels? I should say a lot of breweries that we go to, there'll be like a 7-barrel system, a 10-barrel system, 20-barrel system gets really big in a hurry. How big is your system?
We have a 100-barrel brew house. It's a 100-barrel Braucon. And as far as our tanks go, we have now, just before all of this happened, we only had 11 400-barrel fermenters, and now we just gained 2 more to our arsenal, so we can get more beer in there. So right now we have about 13 400-barrel fermenters, 3 200-barrel fermenters, and plenty of bright tanks for beer to be stored in.
Well, we're going to talk a little bit about that operation in a minute, but let's get to it. I think people are waiting. They want to find out what beer of the week is. Let's crack this open right now and take a look at it. Explain to people what I'm going to pour.
Okay, let me turn it the right way first. So this is Cerveza Delary. This is our flagship Mexican-style lager.
Okay.
4.2%. So it's a very easy drinking beer. As you'll see on Gonzo's screen over there, it's a bright beer, which means it's very clear. The clarity is great on it. What you'll get is a slightly sweet aroma that's coming from the Munich malt. That's really the malt that shines in this beer. And then there is Centennial as well, but it's very limited Centennial. So what we're trying to do is really let that malt do the work, and then as when you taste it, you'll notice that you'll get that sweetness and then a slightly, very slightly bitter finish. It's not too crazy. So,
Do you have any lime or salt in this?
yeah, for sure. I definitely do that every once in a while. I know there are plenty of people who do, but this is a beer to me that if you want to have it without the lime, it's just as good. It's just if you want to change it up a little bit, throw a lime or two in there, and if you prefer some salt, go for it.
Now, lagers, Mexican lagers are really coming on strong. I see a lot of Michigan breweries are tackling them. You're one of the first ones to come on board with it, but it's definitely a style that's picking up, especially for the summer too.
Yeah, it's great. I really like the style, and obviously there are plenty of people, and there's a market for them. The story behind Cerveza Delary came from Ryan Locke, my boss, and Mike Turiff, the one of the owners. Megan Turiff is the other of M4CIC, which is our distributor, and they had a conversation about they were a group of craft beer professionals who were all sitting around. I forget what they were watching, but they were watching something, and they looked around the room, and each one of them had a Mexican lager in their hand. Not necessarily a craft lager, which opened everyone's eyes and said, okay, we are in a unique situation given our location and the fact that people really enjoy this style, that we should probably brew a Mexican style lager in Detroit.
Yeah, and this beer is as you were saying, you get tons of. I mean, first of all, just look at the clarity of that, right? And that's a signature of a lager and this style of beer. I'm seeing a lot of bubbles in there too, which is probably a good thing.
Yeah.
And on the aroma, that those malts really come through.
Yeah, they're I think the subtle sweetness that you get on the back end right before the subtle bitterness comes in is a really nice treat when you're going through the flavors and the palate of the beer.
Yeah, there's that hint of sweetness there on the back end, like you said, coming from that Munich malt. And I think that this is also a great style because it's good for the beach, good for your outdoor things, mowing the lawn, as they say. It definitely is an easy drinker. What is the ABV and the ABV of this beer?
So the ABV is 4.2%. If you're looking for IBU, I never remember this off the top of my head. It's low.
Probably zero.
it's very low. But I sometimes don't really even pay attention to what our IBU is anymore. That's kind of a thing for the past for me and brewers. So
sure thing. And I think this style of beer also is a beer, and it's a fantastic beer, by the way. I'm loving this beer. I think also the lagers really kind of a lot of breweries don't do them because they're hard to hide behind. They've got to be a perfect beer every time.
For me, when I'm visiting a new brewery, even out of state or anywhere else, I really try to get that brewery's lightest beer that they have. Not necessarily a lager, but their lightest beer. That is basically a straightforward, is what a lot of people say, a beer flavored beer. That's what I'm going to shoot for, just to get a gauge on where they're at as far as the brew goes, and then I'll start to branch out from there.
Cerveza Delary, it's our pick for beer of the week, and we're so glad you could join us today. Folks, if you don't know much about Delary, where the name comes from, Dave Seacott, there's a little bit of background because it's close to home there in Corktown.
Yeah, Delary, it's named after the village of Delary, which is very near, most people know Zug Island. But there's a very long history of how it was early on was an immigrant, very specific immigrant town.
Yeah.
And it kind of became incorporated as a village. And the city of Detroit annexed the village of Delray. And it wasn't it was controversial at the time. And even so, right now, I believe the new bridge will be very near that town, or actually in that town. So
it will, yeah, for sure. I do like the name, and the beer, like I said, is fantastic. Hey, this is definitely, like you said, one of your flagship beers there at Brew Detroit in Corktown. Your other one that I picked up when I went to go find this beer was another one of your top sellers. This is Cloud 19. What can you tell me about Cloud 19?
This is I'm really proud of this beer specifically because our head innovative brewer, his name is Eric Selberg. Eric came from the Schoolcraft brewing program there, and this was Eric's basically his first recipe that went from a very small nano batch. I think the first time we did it was February of last year. It was only about a 2 to 4 barrel batch. For that nano system, it's a 2 barrel brew house, so a 4 barrel batch is a double brew day. So we did a very small batch, and it was very, very well received. And it was our first shot at our own New England style IPA, and Eric nailed it right out of the gate. So it was very cool to see a young brewer like Eric do a great job on a recipe and see it from going from a nano draft from in February to us cranking it up to 10 barrels after that, and M4 pushing it out to the market. And by July, we were doing 100-barrel batches on our big system and canning it.
That's
so
cool.
It was very cool to see see that happen for Eric, and he nailed it and continues to nail the beers that we're pushing out.
So you'll see obviously a big difference in appearance, right?
Yes.
In both these beers. Here is the lager, and of course here is the New England, and it looks just on appearance there pretty true to style, right? A little murky, a little cloudy.
Little murky, a little cloudy. It's the IBU on this one I do know because it's in the name. So the 19 that comes from the name of this beer is because it was 19 IBU, and it comes in at 7% straight up. So it's definitely on the different end of the spectrum as Cerveza Delary for sure. But it's a home run.
Yeah, it is a home run. This is the style that I'm drinking a lot right now. The New Englands are kind of my thing. Amy, not so much. She likes the IPAs. Yeah. But this is a really great version of it. I love the aroma. And what hops did you say you're using in this? Do you know offhand?
Yeah, so it's Mosaic and Hallertau Blanc. The Mosaic is going to give you that tropical fruit aroma and flavor that you'll pick up. And then there's the Hallertau Blanc gives it a very slight white wine-like finish. So it brings that sweetness all together from the tropical fruit. So you can really finish it strong and enjoy it.
That's 7%. It'll definitely finish. You can finish strong with that.
Yeah.
One of the people on Facebook, Glenn, is saying that the hazy IPA brought him back to IPA, and that's probably a good statement, right?
Yeah, you'll see that a lot with a lot of the people who are. You'll ask somebody what the beer was that brought them over to the craft beer world, and usually IPAs are not that beer. For me, it was red ales. I went from drinking Killian's and stuff like that to Bell's Amber, and it was red ales for me. Now you'll see people their beer that brought them into craft are New England style IPAs, or even the blonde ales and lagers like a Cerveza Delary. So it's very cool to see that an IPA style like New England style IPA is bringing people over.
Earlier, Dave from Brew Detroit, you said that the tap room opened in 2016 and you started distributing in 2018. But I was surprised to learn you have close to 30 beers on tap at the tap room. And you're open? Are you open right now?
We are open for to-go beers. Right now, we are finalizing what we're going to do as far as opening the inside tap room. We did apply for the temporary license for outdoor area, which we have a pretty good size outdoor. Our tap room manager, Kevin, and I just went and picked up a bunch of tables that we're refinishing. So we'll be able to have a nice size outdoor area. But to-go beers are still happening, Wednesday through Sunday. So people are able to call or email orders, Detroit.com. You'll see the to-go beer menu item there. And the directions on call or the email address to email to place your order.
Now, are you able to, with your license, sell other beers from other breweries that you're contracting with, or are these beers that are on tap solely your beers?
Most, I would say 98 to 99% of them are our beers, whether it's stuff that we put out in the market or beer that we brewed on the nano system that is just in-house only. There are some times when we do sell other clients' beer out of the tap room, but that's very, very rare for us to do that.
Yeah, I was curious. So that's a lot of beers to have on your system there.
Yeah, and that's the thing too with having that nano there. We have about 50 barrel space from 10 barrel fermenters down to 4 barrel fermenters. So we're able to do really small batches and fill those lines pretty quickly and get beer in and out that way. We're not just sitting on old beer, and we can start messing around. And honestly, that's how Cloud 19 became what it is because we were able to do such a small batch and really put feelers out there. When we put that beer on tap the first weekend, I think we put it on a Thursday, and I think we had about 6 half barrels, and they were all gone by Sunday. So we were like, okay, let's pay attention to what's happening here.
Well, Dan on Facebook says that you need to bring back your Bach. Did you have a Bach beer?
We did have a Bach beer. We did a really small batch of that. It was just Brew Detroit Bach beer, and again, Eric worked with Joe Thorner. Joe Thorner has a very long history. Joe Thorner is our brewmaster at Brew Detroit. He oversees all of the brewing operations, what's leading quality wise, and working with recipes for our contract brewing contracts. But Eric works with Joe, and Joe comes from a long line of lagers. He worked at the original Stroh's factory. He worked for a long time for Boston Beer and brewed beer here in the U.S. and overseas in the UK for Boston Beer Company. So he has a very long history on brewing lagers, which is why Delary is what it is.
Well, we applaud you guys for doing this because this is obviously doing a great thing to help out breweries throughout the state, and to also do some pretty creative beers there at your tap room. Let's see here. Dan also says that that you guys have made it really easy to do to-go orders, and you have a great setup. So that's cool. You guys are obviously adapted to all these changes.
Yeah, Kevin and I, we've really paid attention to what was going on early, to where before they even announced the complete shutdown, we kind of looked at it and said, there's a good chance that we're going to have to close. And they already announced to-go stuff and carry out, and we already had the license to be able to do that. So we started trying to implement a plan early on that we were ready and prepared for it, and stage an area when people are actually allowed to come inside. So we had like a staging area, hand sanitizer, had gloves. We were really well prepared for it early on. So the setup we have now is it has moved since we were able to. It's adapted, I should say, since everything has slowly started to open up a little bit. So, yeah. So thank you, Dan.
Dave. Yeah, thank you, Dan. All right, Dave Seacott is with us, folks. Brew Detroit. He helped us unveil our beer of the week, which is the Cerveza Delary from Brew Detroit. It's one of their own beers, and it's available statewide in distribution and also there at the tap room. Hey, before we wrap things up here, and folks, by the way, thank you for tuning in for Beer of the Week. We'll be back again next week with another beer. I don't know what it is, so if you want to put a suggestion for next week's Beer of the Week, feel free to do that on Facebook, or you can email me, gonzo@mlive.com. That's gonzo@mlive.com, and we would love to hear if you have a suggestion for Beer of the Week. Dave, before we sign off here, I asked you off the air about some challenges for the beer industry. Where do you see things going? Because you have a unique perspective as you're a contract brewer for other breweries. You're doing your own beers. What's going to happen here in Michigan over the next year or so?
It's going to be really interesting to see at what capacity we're able to keep the great breweries around that we have. Everybody's in their own situation, their own location, so there's not a cookie cutter response to how people are going to be able to adapt and react to this new way of operating a brewery. So I think what we'll end up seeing is that unfortunately some will close. We'll see that some of these breweries that are in the process of opening will have a delay on opening, but hopefully eventually they're able to get there. And then the other unfortunate one is that some of the breweries that are in process and we're looking forward to opening might not even be able to get to that point. So we'll see what happens. I'm very, even though I listed 2 negatives and 1 positive, I'm weighing way heavier on the positive side that Michigan beer will bounce back. And I really want to drive this home, and I have since the whole thing started, is that the reason why I think Michigan beer will bounce back the way it will is because of the people who are supportive of the industry, inside and outside of the industry. News outlets. You're talking about the bloggers and the beer groups on Facebook. So there's this giant community of Michigan beer supporters and enthusiasts that have been doing an amazing job at making sure the smaller breweries, or all of the breweries in Michigan, at least have a shot. And we're going to continue to brew great beer, and hopefully in the next year and a half, at least, that we'll see a 100% bounce back.
Dave Seacott from Brew Detroit, thank you so much for joining the show. Cerveza, Delary, our pick for beer of the week. Cloud 19, a New England style IPA, also fantastic. Get them right now. They are available. These are the 2 flagship beers for Brew Detroit. Dave, where can people get more information if they want to plan a visit to Detroit and Corktown and visit your taproom when you do open to the public, or just get one of those to-go beers?
You can definitely go to the website, brewdetroit.com. Most of our immediate responses and announcements we have on tap are either going to be on Instagram or Facebook, and you can just search for Brew Detroit on both of those, and we should come up. And you'll get live announcements on what's going on with the full tap room open and any of the beers that we are going to release, which will probably be at least 3 more here pretty soon.
Awesome. Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you very much.
Cheers to Beer of the Week. Thanks for everyone for tuning in, and we'll see you on our next Michigan's Best Adventure.